Okay, we'll start on some wit and wisdom. So I'm going to remind you that our big job for this module is to figure out how people use the powerful force of the wind. How do they respond? How do they use it? How do they react to the powerful force of the wind? And so by reading our text, Feel the Wind, we are trying to figure out, how is wind a powerful force? So what we're going to do is today we're going to take a deeper exploration. Remember, we're going to look very closely at something. And it's not the characters, it's not the setting. Today we're going to look closer at the illustrations or the pictures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some words to you from the book. And you're going to tell me some things that you learned from the words. Then we're going to look at the illustrations and see what other information we get from the illustrations, okay? So I'm going to start by reading, and I want you to tell me some things that you learned just from the words, okay? You can see how strong the wind is by doing an experiment. With a bicycle, stand so that the wind is blowing in your face. Now ride into the wind. Feel how hard it is to pedal. Now turn your bicycle around and ride with the wind pushing you along. Isn't it easier to pedal now? Okay, I want you to tell me, what are some things you learned from the words? What are some things that you learned about the wind from the words? Okay, so one thing is pedaling into the wind is so hard because the wind is pushing you back, right? What about pedaling with the wind? It's easier because the wind is kind of pushing you, right? It's giving you a push. So we've learned that it's hard to pedal against the wind, but it's easy to pedal with the wind. Now, I want you to take what you learned and look at these illustrations. And I want you to see if you can tell me something that you learned from the illustrations that maybe you didn't hear in the words. So what are some things that you learned from the illustrations that maybe you didn't hear in the words? Okay, so when you pedal against the wind, it's like the wind is blowing you which way? Back. So based on this girl, I see that she's even kind of like struggling. She's trying to push herself to make sure the wind doesn't blow her backwards, right? But on this page, I see the opposite. That when you ride with the wind like pushes you down, right? It's almost like she's being pushed down. So riding against the wind pushes you back. Riding with the wind pushes you down. So that's something that the illustration taught you. The illustration shows me that riding against the wind, your hair blows back. Riding with the wind, your hair blows forward. So that's something the illustration taught you. Now I'm going to read you another page. And I want you to tell me what you learned from the words, okay? So what information did you learn from the words? When heated air over the earth rises, cooler, heavier air rushes in to take its place. The moving air is wind. So what is something that you learned from the words? Okay, well, the first thing you learned is that which air goes up? Hot air, heated air, right? Hot air goes up. But then which wind goes down? The cold air, right? So when the hot air rises, the cold air is heavy and it takes its place. And what is that called when those two things switch? It's wind, right? That's making wind. So what you learned was when hot air rises, cold air comes down to take its place, and that air that switches hot and cold air, that's what makes the wind. Now I'm going to show you the illustration, and I want you to see if you learn anything from the illustration. What do you learn from our illustration? Okay, so what color were the arrows going up? Red. And what does that mean? Red means hot. So that must be the hot air. And what were the arrows going down? What color? Blue. So that must mean blue is cold, right? So the illustration shows you that hot air goes up and cold air goes down. So that illustration helped you to see the hot air going up and the cold air going down. Very good. Now I'm going to read you another page. And I want you to tell me what you learn from this, okay? Windmills are wind-powered machines. The blades of a windmill turn when the wind pushes against them. The turning blades move other parts to lift water, or grind grain, or saw wood, or make electricity. So what did you learn from the words about the wind? Okay, the wind can make electricity like our lights. What else can the wind do? Saw wood, right? What else can the wind do? Grind grain. And you're going to say, what in the world is that? It's like squishing grain down and making it into almost like flour. That's what grinding grain is. It can also lift water up. That was the first thing that we learned. So the words taught you a lot. Wind can grind grain, it can saw wood, and it can make electricity for us. It can lift water up also. So I'm going to show you the picture now. And when I show you the pictures, I want you to tell me, what did the illustration teach you about the wind? Okay, so something that I noticed in each one of the pictures is each one of those pictures has something that looks like a blade, right? It has something that looks like a blade, and the wind is turning the blade. So the illustration shows me that the wind can turn the blades. So that way, the wind can help this windmill grind grain. The wind helps this windmill saw all the wood, and the wind helps these windmills make electricity. So we learned not only from the pictures, but also from the illustrations about the wind. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you one more page, and I want you to listen for the word power. And I want you to tell me, what do you think power means based on the illustrations, okay? So listen carefully as I read. You're going to look at the illustrations and you're going to tell me what you think the word power means. People have used the power of moving air for thousands of years. Windmills are wind-powered machines. The blades of a windmill turn when the wind pushes against them. The turning blades move other parts to lift water, grind grain, saw wood, or make electricity. So what do you think the word power means based on these illustrations? What do you think the word power means? Okay, well, I'm thinking the word power means to use that force, right? So what force is it using? What force is that windmill using? Not the blades, but the wind. The wind is pushing those blades, and those blades are turning, and the more the wind blows, the harder those blades turn, which means we can have electricity, which means we can have water, which means we can have, we can saw wood, we can grind grain. So I think the word power means the force of the wind, how hard the wind is blowing, and it can make things. So the force of the wind can make things, right? The force of the wind can help us make things. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to put some different pictures up on Seesaw. And your job is to fill in this sentence frame, okay? The illustrations show me, and you're gonna use my pictures that I give you to tell me what the illustrations show you about the wind, okay? So your job is to fill in that sentence frame to show me what the wind does. You're going to tell me what the wind does by using those illustrations.